Hello, it's Lori from Heirloom Farm. I am going to do my first book review for the group today. I've retreated to outdoors because it's noisy in the house, and it's a beautiful day finally. I'm hoping spring is really here. So I want to start the book review series for this group with the first book that I ever read about 10 years ago that got me started thinking differently about food. And I don't know how I came across it. It was a relatively new book at the time. It was published in 2006. And I think I got my hands on it around 2007 or 8. It may have been on a display at the library, or I don't know if somebody recommended it to me, but I'm really glad that I found it. I think that I had heard the term real food at the time, maybe because Food Inc., the documentary, had come out around, I think, 2008. I may have heard the term from there. But the title of the book is Real Food, What to Eat and Why, by Nina Planck. I don't know if this is going to be backwards for you guys, but this is what the cover looks like. And I'm pretty sure that I got it. I got it on loan from the library at the time, and this time I did interlibrary loan it. The Altoona library has it, and if your library doesn't, maybe they can get it. But I had fun going back through this book this week and just reviewing everything that I had learned the first time. And it was so familiar and comforting to me to see how far I've come from when I first got my hands on this. So, what is real food? She answers that question in the first chapter, I think. And her definition is real food is old. It's something that's traditional. I think those are her two words that she uses to define. Yep, old and traditional. Something that people have been eating for centuries, like butter. People have been eating butter for a very long time, but margarine is a relatively new thing. And traditional is the way we used to eat them, like local and seasonal and whole grains instead of highly processed things, unrefined fats and oils, and beef raised on grass, not on soy or corn. And the opposite of real food in her definition is industrial or recent and synthetic, as opposed to real, old, and traditional. I like how she's written the book because it has a lot of history, food history, like where did margarine come from? I think that was the most shocking story for me to read in that book. If you've never heard of the history of margarine, you could probably Google that, but it's pretty disgusting. And I think at that time in my life I had stopped buying margarine and had come to enjoy real butter, but it just solidified my resolve not to eat margarine anymore. So she has history of food, including dairy, like what's the history of milk and why do people drink it, and how is it processed differently now than it used to be. And then she also has a lot of nutrition science in there, which seems like it might be kind of dry and boring, but she does a great job of mixing in her personal stories and from her life. She grew up on a farm, and then when she moved away, she sort of she turned vegetarian and then vegan, and her health actually declined at that time. And then when she went back to eating real food, including high-fat things like meats and butter and dairy, full-fat dairy, she lost weight and started to feel better. So it's a really interesting personal story that she has. And another story that's in the book that I enjoyed and have learned more about since then was the story of Weston A. Price, who's a dentist in the early 1900s, and he wrote a paper. She says she read the whole thing. It's like 500 pages long. He noticed that his American patients had horrible teeth, and they had health issues like diabetes and arthritis, things that were chronic health issues that other cultures didn't have. So he went to some traditional cultures like Eskimos and to Papua New Guinea, cultures at that time in the early 1900s who had not adopted industrial diets yet. They weren't eating a lot of processed sugar. They were still eating things that they had traditionally eaten in their parts of the world for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And what he found was that their dental health and their overall health was better than the Americans who were eating an industrial diet. So you could read about it in the book or a lot of other places if you look up Weston A. Price. But they were eating a lot of traditional foods like animal-based diets, some of them entirely animal-based, a lot of full-fat dairy, full-fat meat, also traditionally prepared grains, soaked grains, different than our fast way of doing things now, and organ meat, liver, bone marrow, that sort of thing. So I think that was, for me, very eye-opening, because the government food pyramid and the labeling on food would say that low fat is the best, or obviously low sugar, or like sugar free, but maybe they substitute artificial sweeteners. Those are the things that, or like eggs are bad or red meat is bad. We hear those sorts of things, but she goes into detail about the studies that were done that tell that those things aren't necessarily true, or they're not true actually, and why, and things like cholesterol, and that doctors worry about, how that's not necessarily something that you have to worry about when you're eating in a traditional real food way. So she has chapters on meat, on milk, on farming practices, industrial versus traditional, and the chapter on vegetables is awesome. She actually includes tips for eating more vegetables, like having a salad at every meal, and ways to dress it up nicely so that it's appetizing. Eating your salad first or as a main course. So there are a lot of different ideas on how to get more veggies into your diet. I think that's about all I wanted to say about this book. I'm just checking over my notes. I really, really highly recommend this book. It was just life-changing, I think, for us in realizing we knew that real food tasted better, but I think sometimes we'd feel guilty, like we thought butter was bad for you or lard was bad for you, but now we have no guilt when we eat real food. So check out Real Food. Let me know in the comments, have you read it? Did you like it? What did you think? And if you end up reading it after the fact because of this recommendation, I'd like to hear back from you too. Thanks for watching.